following day, and each day after that, Mr. P stole back into the building to watch, listen, and marvel. More and more people joined the group, some singing, others dancing. Afterward, he demonstrated all he had seen and heard for Mrs. P. "That's lovely, dear," she cooed, swaying along to his warbling. Another day, she gently tapped her eggs in time to his lively dance. "You must teach our little ones when they arrive," she enthused. "It won't be long now." The next time Mr. P crept into the giant room, he sensed a new energy. Colorful lights twinkled overhead. Someone was sweeping the floor, and someone else ran by with an armful of pages. Mr. P hopped onto a chair at the back of the room for a better view. A booming voice called, "Places, everyone!" All the lights went out. And action! Music began. Spotlights zigzagged across the floor, and the performers burst into view, dressed in sparkling clothes and waving feathered fans. Everything Mr. P had seen and heard now came together in a spellbinding story, with sensational songs and dazzling dances, all making one marvelous magical show. At the end, the company formed a line and kicked their legs high, then climbed a grand staircase to pose for a spectacular finale. Unable to contain his enthusiasm, Mr. P jumped up, flapping his wings and quacking loudly. The surprised performers peered toward the unusual sound, and Mr. P realized he had been discovered. He stumbled and fumbled out of the building, only to be greeted by a flapping and quacking even louder than his own. Quack, quack, quack! Mrs. P was in a panic. Tiny ducklings were topping out of the flower box and onto the ground, pecking, poking, peeping, and piping in all directions. "They're here," she cried. "They're all here. We must get them to the water." Passers-by had gathered in surprise. Cars honked and dogs barked. It was pandemonium. Mrs. P stretched her wings wide in an effort to protect her new family. Mr. P was stunned for a moment, but as the puzzled performers spilled out of the theater, he suddenly knew what to do. "Places, everyone!" he bellowed, then startled ducklings. The startled ducklings fell into line. And action! The puddle ducks began to march. The performers fanned out to clear a path, and the musicians struck up a lively tune. What a spectacle it was! A chorus line of ducks, singers, dancers, musicians, and townspeople, all parading down the wharf. Finally, they reached the water's edge. Mrs. P jumped in first, urging her ducklings to follow. Splish, splash, sploosh! All but the tiniest one tumbled in. He teetered on the edge, afraid to take the plunge. Mr. P gave him a gentle nudge, then leaped into the air and clicked his heels together in delight before joining his family in the water. The audience roared, "Bravo!" As they paddled toward the sunset, Mrs. P sighed with contentment. "That was quite a show. Let's come back again next year." "For an encore," Mr. P declared. Then with a flourish, he tipped into the water and fanned his tail to make his own fabulous feathered finale. Note from the authors. This story was inspired by a true event. Emma and her husband Stephen co-founded Bay Street Theater, a small professional theater on the East End of Long Island, New York. One spring, a pair of ducks nested in a flower box in the courtyard. The day the ducklings hatched, the theater staff were startled to see them tumble out of their nest and follow their mother out of the courtyard. Everyone jumped into action, fanning out to protect the duck family as they paraded down the wharf. When the ducks reached the water, all but the littlest one jumped in. Emma gave him a gentle nudge, whereupon the duck family paddled away to a round of applause from the crowd. It's no accident that Mr. and Mrs. Puddle Duck's ducklings were born talented enough to form a chorus line on their way to the water. They had been immersed in musical theater long before they hatched. Studies show that young people who are exposed to the arts are more confident and creative, become better problem solvers and team players, and are more likely to succeed at school and in life. That's why we support giving all children frequent access to the arts. Every time we take a child to enjoy the theater, visit a museum, or attend a concert, we are nourishing their souls and investing in their future.